Welcome back into our continued conversation about overhead layering. Now, for a moment here, I kind of paused and switched up my mannequin. I went to, this is Jane. Hello, everybody. Meet Jane. I went to Jane for a second. Jane's got some longer hair because I just want to make a point about the difference between a stationary guide and a moving guide. We're mostly using moving guides in our men's hair cutting, but I want to just clarify this point. So like the video, comment on the video, share the video, turn on your notifications, never miss a video in this series. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. I want to offer up just a quick distinction here between a stationary guide and a moving guide. A stationary guide, as the name implies, is a guide that remains in one place, and I'm going to create one right here. I'm going to take a section of hair, I'm going to comb it up at the top of Jane's head, and I'm going to cut the hair to a desired length. There it is right there. There's a piece of hair and it has a length. And it's projected, the top of the head, it's projected up at 90 degrees. We're slightly forward of the top, so it's pitched a little bit forward, but that's my guide at 90 degrees. In the case of a stationary guide, any hair that I cut is brought to the guide. So the next parting or the next section here, I'm going to bring it up to the guide. Look for my guide, there's my guide, right there, and I would cut it off. The hair next to it came up to it to get cut. Now remember, as we travel around the surface of the head, the farther a guide is from the point of origin, meaning this piece of hair, the next section of hair, it lives, its origin is farther away from the guide, and it has to travel up to get to the guide. Well, that means it's going to be getting longer. The next piece of hair to travel up to the guide, if we projected these hairs out away from the head, you would see that the farther the hair starts from the guide point, the longer it is because it needs to travel up to get to the guide. The farther it travels, the longer it's going to be. That is one of the ideas or concepts behind a stationary guide, is as hair moves to the guide, if it started out farther away, it will end up longer. Does that make sense? I hope so. A traveling guide would be a guide that moves with the section. So section number 1, I cut, it's my guide. Section number 2 is projected with section number 1, 90 degrees to where it lives. Section number 3 does not travel back to section number 1. It would increase in length if it did. Section number 3 only travels to its common point with section 2. Section number 4 doesn't go all the way up to section number 1. It stays at its point common for 3 and 4, thereby we're getting a consistent and even length because the hair is never really getting farther away from the point or the origin of the guide. The origin of the section and the origin of the guide are moving together. If the origin of the guide and the origin of the section get farther away, the hair will get longer to get there. I hope that concept made sense the way I described it. I want to be honest with you and tell you that when I first started cutting hair, I didn't get this right away. I had to not only see this happening on clients, but I had to oops it. I had to cut it wrong to understand why I did it wrong, to understand how I would do it right, and then the light went on and it all made sense. I hope in this video I've able to make the difference between a stationary guide and the hair traveling up versus a moving guide and the hair only traveling to that guide. I hope I've been able to make that make sense. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in the next video.